What's going on, guys? Andrew of New Bark Gaming back here, and today we're going to be talking some about Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains episode 93. Now, first off, I think we have to consider the fact that we had 2 pubic screams, a fart joke, and a Yu-Gi Joey level friendship moment in this episode, so if that's not what you've been looking for within your Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime, I don't know why you're watching this in the first place. All kidding aside, though, this is probably one of the greatest episodes we've had in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains, and for a number of reasons, so let's go ahead and start jumping right into it. So to start things off here, guys, this is basically Kusanagi's shining moment within the show so far. I mean, not only are we seeing him duel for the first time outside of the context of a flashback, he also is the one that instigates this Yu-Gi Joey type of moment in the year 2019. And while we've had a lot of great best friend character and main protagonist character moments within Yu-Gi-Oh! Throughout its years, one that works quite like Yugi and Joey's friendship isn't something I don't think we've honestly seen since Duel Monsters back in the day. You know, the whole moment and flashback scene we get within this episode with Kusinagi and Playmaker talking about basically their agreement, and Kusinagi forcing Playmaker to agree that he will do everything in his power to win, despite the fact that he's facing his best friend, really reminds me of the sort of conversations that Yugi and Joey would have had during Duelist Kingdom when they were getting ready to face each other in what were basically the finals of the tournament, because then you had the match with Pegasus, so whether you want to consider that the final or semi-final is a little bit open to interpretation, but the point holds here, because Kusinagi, much like Joey and Yugi, Kusinagi and Playmaker both have very valid points of what they're fighting for, but Joey says, Yugi, look, Pegasus needs to get defeated, so we need the best duelist between the two of us to go on and play him. That needs to be whoever wins in a genuine fight, not you going easy on me because I'm your best friend or anything like that. Kusanagi's point isn't exactly the same, but the kind of emotions that are resonating up from it, I would say, are very, very similar. Kusanagi basically forces Playmaker to promise that he's willing to defeat him for the greater good. And this shows a lot of strength on Kusanagi's part because it shows that he's willing to acknowledge a weakness within his character. Now, take this a very specific way when I say this, because being attached to people, not a weakness whatsoever, but he admits that he will not be willing to sacrifice himself and his brother willingly in order to protect the rest of the world. So he will fight. He will do everything in his power to protect Jin, but while he is in a non-emotional state of mind, while he is thinking rationally, he wants Playmaker to promise him, look, the rest of the world needs you to protect it. The rest of the world looks to you as a hero. The rest of the world looks to you for hope. If I, some no-name, defeat you, then A, we may not be able to defeat Lightning and Bowman at all, and B, then their symbol of hope, their symbol of heroism is suddenly tarnished. There's nobody for the world to necessarily look to the way they look to you right now, so we need you to still win. We need you to protect people. We need you to seek out justice the way you continuously have been, Playmaker. And that speech from Kusanagi is something that really resonates well with me. I think this was one of the best written exchanges of dialogue in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains. You could probably make a really strong case for it being the strongest exchange of dialogue. Once more, I think this is one of the best character interactions overall in Yu-Gi-Oh! That we've had since some of those Yugi Joey moments all the way back in Duel Monsters, so big props to the writers there. Now, going back to the fact that I basically said that this is Kusanagi's episode to shine, there's a number of other things that they do, even if they're a little bit more subtle, just to add on top of the fact that he makes this sort of ultimate sacrifice of both him and his brother in the name of Playmaker winning. While he doesn't surrender the duel, he basically tells Playmaker, look, you need to duel me all out, completely aware that he doesn't stand a chance against a Playmaker that's actually trying in a duel. So that's pretty awesome of him. Now, as for those other things that kind of build on this basically being his episode, we have some really interesting perspectives now on his conversation with Lightning. He sent this program to Vira because he was aware the situation was coming. He talked to Playmaker because he was aware the situation was coming, which means on both occasions there, he outsmarted Lightning. He saw Lightning's strategy coming before it happened, which even shocks Lightning himself. Something very impressive and something I don't know that we can necessarily say the rest of our characters have been able to do to this point. So far, Kusanagi's basically been the only one to be fully one step ahead of Lightning at any point in this arc of the story, which is pretty impressive. Adding to that, he outright tricks Lightning. During that entire conversation, Lightning fully, genuinely believed that he had caught Kusanagi off guard, and Kusanagi put on an extremely good performance to make you genuinely believe that he was caught off guard by the fact that Jin was being used against him. So that just adds a lot to his character. It makes him feel very relevant. Basically, Kusanagi has successfully managed to make himself a very plot-relevant character with only a single duel that was very short-lived and that you could pretty much predict the results of in most cases. Most of the theories lean towards Playmaker winning in the first place, and that's something that not a lot of characters throughout Yu-Gi-Oh's history have necessarily pulled off. Most characters that don't duel end up sort of fading into the background, but Kusinagi did some awesome strategizing there, and I think it's a really good testament to his character. In addition to that, there is one line of dialogue that he basically thinks to himself during the duel with Playmaker I really want to point out here, and that's the fact that he says, "Jin, forgive me," after he's thinking about the fact that he's essentially failed Jin twice, both in the first story arc and now this one, to protect him from lightning. This could actually be interpreted a couple of different ways. It could be genuinely him wishing Jin to forgive him, that he's already failed him twice, and that's why he's genuinely trying to save him now. Or it could be him asking Jin to forgive him because he's aware Playmaker is going to win this duel, and he's aware that he essentially chose having Playmaker go on to protect the world, protect their symbol of optimism, over protecting his own brother. He made a choice for his brother to sacrifice both of them in the name of this quote-unquote greater good. At which rate, that's a really neatly written line of dialogue because it kind of works on both levels. They aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. You can read that as meaning both things at once there, which is just really awesome. Probably over-analyzing that single line a little bit there, but I thought it was really well written. And in addition to that, Kusinagi also never refers to Yusaku as Yusaku within this duel, which was most likely a conscious decision. He calls him Playmaker every single time to also protect his identity, protect this symbol. It's kind of like the old speeches that Batman would give in the Christopher Nolan Batman movies about a symbol. Part of the idea is that anybody could be the Batman. Same idea with this whole Playmaker thing. If Playmaker's identity is revealed, not only does it put him in danger within the real world if he has people who aren't necessarily so fond of him, but it also ruins this idea that Playmaker could be anybody. Anyone could take on that mantle and just do the right thing for the sake of it. So once more, all of this dialogue writing, the fact that Kusanagi's basically being selfless throughout this entire duel while wearing a very well-formed mask in front of Lightning to make it seem like he's genuinely trying to win, just is a great testament to his selflessness and how awesome of a character he really is. This is, once more, one of the best written sets of actions of a character that generally doesn't duel I think we've ever seen in Yu-Gi-Oh! So just overall, really awesome episode on that alone, guys, and there's several more things that we're going to dive into, so let's go ahead and move a little bit past Kusanagi into some of the other things that happened here. So staying within the context of the duel between Playmaker and Kusanagi here, Playmaker also uses a new monster that several of the other characters refer to as potentially being his new ace, being Extended Decode Talker. Now this monster in particular seems to follow a trend that we've seen happen especially within Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 and Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal, but also kind of throughout the course of all of the different animes, being that you have your main character's ace monster, and then as the show develops and as their dueling skills supposedly progress, that ace monster sort of evolves with them. You know, in Zexal we had Utopia, then we had Utopia Ray V, etc, etc. Arc 5, we had all the different variations of Odd Eyes for each of the dimensions, and all of those types of things. Well, now Yusaku's got Extended Decode Talker, which literally just seems to be a new form of Decode Talker. Speaking of which, his character design reminds me a lot of Utopia, only if you were to take all of the white and replace it with purple. Maybe it's just the two swords thing going on, the fact that it kind of has that human-esque shape to its overall appearance, that type of thing, but I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But moving right along here, I think there may have actually been a miswrite on the writer's part in terms of how this monster's attack works within the context of this episode. So if we're to look at regular Decode Talker's effect, it gains 500 attack for every monster that its link markers point to, right? And then on top of that, Playmaker also then activates a card called Decode Destruction, which adds an additional 500 attack for every monster that its link markers point to. So if that's the case, well, when he summons it, he's got two monsters it's pointing to, in addition to Decode Destruction, that should theoretically end up adding this total of 2,000 attack to the monster. Well as the additional 500 attack from the card he activates, which allows him to gain attack to make it so his monster's attack is equal to Kusanagi's. All those types of things. That math theoretically adds up to the 4,800 it ends up with. Problem is, the way Decode Talker, regular Decode Talker's effect works is if one of those monsters disappears from where its link marker is pointing, then it loses that 500 attack it gained from it being there. For example, if Decode Talker, when summoned, is pointing to one other monster, its attack goes from 2,300 to 2,800. If that other monster it's pointing to gets destroyed, it's back down to 2,300. Well, by the time Yusaku's monster stops losing attack as a result of Kusanagi's cards, those other two monsters it was pointing to are gone, so shouldn't its attack have dropped? I don't know, maybe just me probably hyper-analyzing a little bit too much, and it's possible that this one has a permanent attack gain. After all, this isn't Decode Talker, this is Extended Decode Talker. Regardless, it's a pretty cool monster overall design-wise. Just thought I may have caught something that I guess irked me just a little bit, since I do play the TCG somewhat casually in terms of the effects, but it's the anime, it makes some passes in terms of the rules and such anyway. Gotta just use a little bit of temporary suspension of disbelief there, nothing wrong with that. So pressing right forward, otherwise, I did enjoy this card. I hope that it has a little bit more going on to it, because currently its effect of, well, if you manage to attack a monster and then you have monsters destroyed in its link markers, it can attack twice that turn. That effect seems a little too situational for my liking, because it basically strikes me as one of those things where, hey, I'm Yusei and I have this deck with this crazy combo in it, but it only works if I have these exact 6 starting cards in my hand. Type of a thing, which always just irritated me a little bit with Yusei. I don't want to see that happen with Playmaker's Ace Monster as well. So then beyond the exact context of the duel between Yusaku and Kusinagi here, we also have the fact that Lightning and Bowman come in the middle of the duel to basically tell Kusinagi, okay, you've got him beat, wrap this up, and watch all the action as it goes on, kind of torture the two as much as they can. Lightning tries to rub it in Playmaker's face after he's defeated, and this is where we get one of probably my favorite Playmaker moment in the entire show, where Lightning says, you lost, we beat you without even dueling you, and Playmaker says, no, you're the one that lost here. Kusinagi predicted your entire plan and made me promise to do this in the first place. I won for him, not because I needed to in order to progress onward. And that was just an incredible moment within the show. Also, when Lightning realizes that he was tricked by Kusinagi, a wonderful expression to see on his face, especially considering it plays really well into the overall theme of this conflict that they've got going on, which is Lightning's kind of superiority complex with the AIs, believing that humans' emotions often cloud their judgments and everything else. Well, Lightning's predetermined notions clouded his judgment of Kusinagi here and made him not believe that Kusinagi necessarily would have been tricking him. Additionally, the emotions that Lightning claims are a weakness to humans are the reason that we're able to trick people sometimes anyway, because that adds to the uniqueness of how each individual human expresses themselves. It makes it so unlike a code, which may be able to be read basically the same way by a series of different people, a smiley face on one person's facial expression doesn't necessarily mean the same thing when you're looking across 10 different people. For one person, it could be just a small little, like, curl in their smile and they're in the best mood possible. For another person, it could be something totally fake that they're putting on to surprise the world. The point here being, Kusinagi's individualism, because he is human, because he has that emotional expression, is what allows him to trick Lightning and essentially overcome him, leading to what's been sort of Lightning's biggest defeat so far, because it intellectually stepped on his ideas, his superiority ideas towards AIs as a whole. So that was just a really awesome moment to watch unfold. Gonna be curious to see what exactly happens with Bowman from there. Now, before I dive into my last point of this episode, I'm gonna be talking a little bit about Vira and the fact that she reveals she's almost got this program completed. I will be talking a little bit about what I've read in terms of the summaries for the upcoming episodes. So if you don't want any spoilers for this, skip to the end of this video and then I'll catch you guys next time. If you don't care about spoilers, then progress onwards. This is your warning. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so jumping right into this, Vira reveals that she's basically got the program done, and immediately afterwards she's going to end up contacting Revolver. We know from the upcoming episode summaries that we're going to end up seeing a Soul Burner versus Bowman duel, so it sounds like this program's probably going to be used to free them. My point that I'm wondering about here is we also find out that Revolver's aware of some sort of a sin that Lightning committed. Now, it could be the obvious thing that Lightning more or less indirectly has led to a pseudo-death for 2 of his AI companions who at some point or another throughout his history, he did have some respect, some level of compassion towards, whether he admits to it or not, based on the fact that in his overarching scheme, he wanted all the Ignises to work together, at least initially, before they started conflicting with him and everything else. So Revolver may just be kind of guilt-tripping him of, these were your friends, you totally betrayed them, everything else. Even if you don't consider humans your friend, at one point you were connected to these AIs, and maybe that gets through to Lightning. Or, going back to my point about Vira and the fact that she's almost done this program, and she states within this episode that she wants to contact Revolver, perhaps the Knights of Hanoi dug up on something about Lightning that we haven't found out before. That would make a lot of sense. It would explain why she wants to contact Revolver, and then why Revolver is the one who reveals what it is that Lightning doesn't want the world to know. Maybe she finds the genuine plan with Bowman as well, which we know Revolver goes on to reveal. All of that could be really awesome, kind of layers our episodes together really well, which is something I think Vrains has been doing pretty well for these past several episodes, kind of gradually flowing into each other, doing so in a very smooth way, which is awesome because I feel like the show prior to these last like 15 to 20 episodes has been a little bit clunky in terms of transition. So with all that being said, guys, that's going to wrap up my thoughts on this episode. On the whole, once more, I think this is one of the best episodes we've had in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains, especially for a very long time, and I really enjoyed it, so be sure to let me know your thoughts, comments, theories, etc. in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe. If not, constructive criticism is always welcome, and I'll catch you guys next time to discuss some more Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains.